The last thing I'd be wanting to do is to do 2 videos on Owen Jones in 2 days. Because then he's going to think, you know, I've got him on my brain. Not that I'm on his radar at all, but, you know, I don't want anyone thinking that he's constantly on my mind. But the problem is with what happened is I knew that they're just going to keep spinning this and spinning it and spinning it and spinning it. And they're just going to run with it without any actual facts. And in this article, the talking points are just the same talking points that they use over and over again when it comes to this whole far-right rising thing. Check out a video about the far-right myth, if you haven't already. Because they just perpetuate the same thing. They bring up the same talking points over and over again as if it's fact. And if you keep saying the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, repeating it, then it's just going to be drilled into your brain that this is how it is. But it's not. Not 100% how it is. But this is what they're doing. And this article is infuriating because it does bring up exactly the same points, the points I've always talked about, that they will use to convince you that this is exactly what it is. And yet we don't really know anything as at time of recording this video. We don't know. It's all hearsay. There's no evidence at the time of recording this video. There's nothing, and yet they're just running with this, and it is. What's the word? Irresponsible. It's irresponsible. Owen and your friends. So there he is. Yeah. Far-right say they love free speech, but the attack on Owen Jones shows they hate a critical press. Now this is so many assumptions already in the title of the article, in the headline. Right. You're saying, so already you're saying anyone who advocates for free speech is sort of being labelled as far right, which is what they've done for a long time. They're saying, you know, it's the far right who are speaking out again, who are speaking about free speech continuously. They keep making out, left-wing media outlets keep making out that it's the far right that are, you know, moaning on about free speech all the time and saying it's under threat. And it's just a far right talking point. That's the way they're trying to frame it all the time. This is not just my opinion. There's many other people's opinions, and this is what you see with evidence. Okay, so that's what they've already put it into your mind. Oh, free speech. Like they're associating free speech with the far right. Like they're successfully doing it to make the two things be as one. You know, like a swastika and being a Nazi, whereas the swastika is used by many other different cultures for very positive things, but it's synonymous with Nazism, mainly in the Western world. And then, of course, the attack on Owen Jones shows they hate a critical press. We're making assumptions that we know it was far-right attackers attacking Jones for his criticisms of the far-right. We do not know this. We don't know. I am genuinely angry. We don't know. So why are you saying this? What is the possible benefits of saying this? Is it benefits to you and your cause and your team? This doesn't benefit us, okay? Astonishing. Everything in this headline alone is just, you know? Oh, look at my tongue. God, I'm drinking too much coffee this morning. I have to brush my tongue. Well, let's go over it. Because they're going to bring up all the talking points that they always do. All of them. These articles are cut and paste jobs. They are just literally cut and paste jobs. They've just got a file saved with the talking points, and then they alter it a bit, and that's it. That's what it is. In the early hours of Saturday morning, Owen Jones was attacked in the street by a troop of thugs. You're saying a troop of thugs. We don't know if they're thugs. And you're just using language to describe someone because of their behaviour, who made a beeline straight for the prominent left-wing journalist. They ambushed him outside an Islington pub, dragged him to the ground, punched and kicked him, leaving him with head injuries and a bloodied back. Never heard of a bloodied back before. There you go. The friends who sprang to his defence were beaten for their trouble. That just happens, doesn't it? Over recent years, Jones has been subjected to febrile chorus of death threats, harassment and stalking from the far right. Now, you see, I rinse on Owen Jones because he's an imbecile, okay? I'm not some far right person. You know, you can criticise him because he's an idiot and a divisive person. Like, he's as divisive as the far right is, you know? He is, like, these are divisive people. Britain First, I don't like them because they're divisive. Owen Jones, I don't like him because he's divisive. These are not people who are standing up trying to bring people together. This is not their mission in life. And so for him, there's no doubt as to the motivation behind this attack. For him, as in, not what he actually thinks, is what he's saying. This is what he's saying. This might not be what he thinks, let alone what even happened. This is what he's saying, okay? This doesn't validate anything. Across the country and across the world, the far right are on the rise. Populism's on the rise, that's for sure, but the far right... There's evidence to suggest that it could be, but not to the scale of which we're supposed to be scared of it. Like, it's nowhere near the rise of terrorism under Islam. This is a fact, you know. And the weird thing is that people who criticize Islam are then labelled far right, even though, like I said, the fear machine made us scared of Islam in the first place by talking about it all the time, like they talk about the far right all the time now. They're in the streets, in the broadsheets, in the whispering velvet halls of power. Oh my God. Hearsay, hearsay, hearsay. They're tooled up foot soldiers, giddy on vicious fairy tales of their own heroism, are walking into cinemas and shopping centres and places of worship and opening fire. Again, there's nothing really factual about what they're saying. They're just sort of going, well, this sort of thing happens and this sort of thing happens. This could be happening. This is fiction based on facts. Do you know what I'm saying? This is an interpretation of reality, right? But not a good one. A far right attack claimed the life of pro-migrant MP Joe Cox. There you go. Every time, Joe Cox, the one death at the hands of the far right. And do we even know the geezer was far right? He shouted Britain First, and he was clearly a lunatic. I would put it down to a murder at the hands of lunacy. I think a lot of attacks that have happened, like the guy that did the Finsbury Mosque, the guy that ran people over outside Westminster, you know, there's a few other examples. I think these people are just nutters rather than terrorists. Like, but they always label it terrorism. And it's like, no, these people are crazy. There's crazy people doing mad shit every day. And they always bring up Joe Cox as the only thing they got. But if they keep talking about Joe Cox over and over again, it's sick. It's as sick as when groups like Britain First kept talking about, or far-right groups, keep using Lee Rigby's name over and over again as a political pawn. Now, Lee Rigby and Joe Cox are used and abused by the two opposing sides of the political spectrum. They are. They're used and abused. They just spout their names off whenever they think whenever it suits them. It's disgusting. It's fucking disgusting. You always bring her up. It's the one death you got. The one death you got to prove this narrative that you have. Like, leave her alone, man. I don't even like mentioning your name in this video. Can you just leave it alone? MP Rosie Cooper, Jeremy Corbyn, and Sadiq Khan have also been singled out for punishment. Yeah, and so loads of MPs. Loads of them. Because they're all pricks. People don't like MPs. Like, just because you've got some MPs that people worship, like Jeremy Corbyn and Boris Johnson have weird worshippers. It's like, alright, because they're weirdos. Racially motivated abuse and attacks are on the rise. Give me statistics. Crisis after intractable political crisis has whittled down the legitimacy of the establishment, and the sharp white bones of racism are freshly exposed. The media has proved a key battlefield. The established right-wing press, there is an established left-wing press, you, and The Guardian, and The Mirror, routinely demonizes migrants and people of colour. this is subjective, whilst whipping up suspicion against left-wingers, social democrats, and even the vaguely pro-migrant centre. Anyone who opposes the right-wing political settlement, anyone who doesn't back the most hardline hate campaigns against the humane migration policies, are branded traitors, dismissed as decadent metropolitan elites, cynically disinterested in the affairs of real people. Enemies, it would seem, are everywhere. Well, I'll tell you for this, because the mainstream parties at one point were in all agreement not too long ago that immigration was just out of control and it needed to be curbed. And then suddenly that became a dirty thing to say, even though the numbers didn't lie. It's not that people are against immigration, it's just mass immigration. This is the difference. This is the thing. And as for metropolitan elites, like, a lot of this stuff is London-centric. There's too much London-centric stuff in the UK. You'll find that with many different areas, many different work sectors when it comes to politics. Meanwhile, this is the general opinion of the public. Meanwhile, high-profile members of the far-right use free speech as a rallying cry to demand more and more press attention. They pose as censored revolutionaries, claiming that if they aren't offered big-name panel shows and cozy interviews, this is simply further proof of the liberal conspiracy to silence the capital T truth. Here they go. Tommy Robinson is a particular master of this ploy, revamping his image from racist thug to populist free speech martyr and receiving fawning press attention. In reality, it's nothing. Fawning press attention from who? Fawning? What are you talking about? In reality, it's nothing but a cynical bait and switch ploy to paint their opponents as reactionaries, demand bigger platforms, and declare themselves exempt from critique or consequence. No, that's not what free speech is all about, is it really? Okay. And also saying that that people don't like free speech, and the example you're using off the bat, is that Owen Jones gets a beat down because of what he's been saying, allegedly. This is all hearsay anyway. Well, no, silencing someone is different. That means you don't give them a platform. That means they can't talk. If you can talk, but then the whole point of free speech is you can say whatever you want, but there will be consequences. There's always consequences. You can say some outrageous stuff. You can cuss out someone's mother. You can say what you want. You can make some off-key paedophile jokes. Someone's going to take offense to it at some point, and how they react to that is down on them. It's up to them how they react to it, isn't it? And it's up to you to deal with the consequences. And then if it goes too far, then we have the law, and the law will do something about it. This is how it works. This is called just speaking or doing something. And there will be consequences. Do you get it? Many of Owen's liberal outlets take the bait, offering up their airtime and column inches to the frothing band of reactionaries with precisely zero interest in protecting freedoms they are attempting to exploit. What are these freedoms? Enter Owen Jones, our hero, the new Jussie Smollett. As the far right have slithered their way into the media and political mainstream, left-wing and critical voices have come under harsh fire from yammering bands of far-right fanboys and their milquetoast non-opposition who bombard them with harassment and threats. Okay. So they come under harsh fire. What? It's called criticism. And don't be labelling people far-right because they want to criticise fucking Owen Jones, my friend. Good grief. Jones has become a favourite whipping boy for cheerleaders of the new far-right. No. Do you know why he's a whipping boy? He's my whipping boy. I have no far-right tendencies at all, my friend. Do not label me. Do not beseech me. You call me far-right, I'll call you a cock-sucking paedophile. Yeah? It's as a legitimate claim for me to call you a cocksucking paedophile, for you to call me far right, okay? Now, I'm not saying you particularly like sucking, minors' cocks. You could suck adult cock and still be a paedophile. It's up to you. It's what I've labelled you, though. Reason Owen Jones, like I said, reason you go after Owen Jones is because he constantly talks nonsense. He twists facts. He spins narratives. He's divisive. He makes, you know, he's an idiot. He's an idiot that people seem to like. So of course, he's got a prominent, he has a prominent voice. He's in the mainstream. So yes, we'll criticize him because he's an imbecile. He's as big an idiot as, you know, someone like, who's that idiot? Who's the guy that used to edit The Sun? God, what was that guy name? What was his name? Anyway, he was an idiot too. The one who talked about Ross Barkley and got sacked. He's an idiot, so I'll call him out too. He's unabashedly left-wing, proudly pro-migrant, determinedly anti-racist. Is he? Is he? He may say he's anti-racist, but maybe he's not. Openly gay, and most terrifying of all, lots of people agree with what he has to say. I mean, yes, that is terrifying. Yes, that is terrifying. But as terrifying as you know, the amount of people that think you know that we should bring back hanging is terrifying. You know, this is all terrifying things. Online abuse has bled out onto the streets. Yeah, with activists hurling abuse at him on the streets. One far-right leader posted photos of him on Facebook along with threatening messages that promised to hunt him down. At least one particular group of knuckle-draggers, oh, I think calling people knuckle-draggers now, yeah, felt blood enough to make good on some particularly brutal promises. Did they? Do we even know? No. If we are surprised by any of this, we have not been paying attention. I'm not surprised that an incident happened. I'm just surprised that no one's calling bullshit on it. This is what the far-right commitment to free speech looks like in practice. Targeted campaigns of abuse, bullying and physical violence to terrify the opposition into silence and inertia. But who are these people? Do you know what I'm saying? Who? When? Where? How do they identify? What group is it? Because if there are far-right people out there constantly threatening Owen Jones because he speaks out, you know, well, they're dickheads, aren't they? You know, you don't go threatening people. You do what I do and just belittle him as an idiot. You know, he can say what he wants. He can have a platform. It's fine. I'm going to rip shit into him because he's an idiot. An idiot that gets paid more than me. I'm a hater. No, I'm not a hater. I have no hate in my heart. Freedom of speech means freedom to spew their toxic propaganda as widely as possible. Like Owen Jones spews toxic propaganda. Excuse me. Okay, it may not look as horrible, you know, it may not be as sexy as openly far-right lunacy, but it is toxic and it is propaganda. Okay, well, it's punishing those who mount an opposition. Yeah, when those, you know, anyone who opposes other left-wing, you know, people are getting beat down on all sides. Do you know what I'm saying? This is not a one-way street, my friend. I don't know why I'm calling you my friend. You're not. Intimidating members of the press is a reliable weapon in the far-right tactical arsenal. Tommy Robinson, for his part, is notorious for hunting down the home addresses of journalists who have criticised him and turning up there in the middle of the night. But he has done that. He did also go after someone who told him to go kill himself, and then he just went out and get him. Like, he actually did a Jay and Silent Bob in real life. I mean, it's hilarious to see that. It's worth a watch. It's like, what are you doing? Anyway, a far-right terrorist in the US was recently convicted for sending nail bombs to the offices of those outlets Trump decided as the lying media. Trump is notorious for attacking individual journalists who criticize him, and statements saying the entire media industry is crammed with enemies of the people. This comes as part of a broader project, not simply to single out individual opponents or disloyal organizations, but to discredit the media as a whole. No, you discredited yourself. You have been discrediting yourself for a long time. This article, where you are saying that people are trying to discredit the media, you've discredited yourself with this article and articles that are similar. So you can't go blaming Donald Trump for the demise of your industry. You cannot do that because you're doing it. It's you, you know. You know the whole saying is, it's not you, it's me. Well, you're the me in that equation right now. You're the me. It's not us. It's you. Okay? You did it. You did it to yourself. Do you know what I'm saying? You did it to yourself. It's an effort to create an atmosphere of suspicion and confusion in which misinformation, scare tactics and propaganda can flourish, and in which critical members of the press are painted as stooges of a conspiratorial elite, there to sell out the real population, whoever they may be. At best, the press come off as weak and dim-witted puppets. At worst, they're an active danger which must be stamped out. This is more or less an attempt to crush the possibility of opposition, to make alternative futures unthinkable, by discrediting, terrifying or drowning out millions of people clamouring for a more just world. When the Nazis rose to power, there you go, and these are the talking about the Nazi references. You cannot compare anything that is going on right now with what happened in Nazi Germany. You can see similarities with anything, but this, like, come on, you're just being a lunatic. Journalists were targeted, attacked, murdered in the street. Okay, good for them. Foreign reporters who refused to paint a rosy picture of life in the Reich were summarily turfed out of the country. Who's been turfed out of the country? Who's been... The only journalists I can think of who have been sort of turfed out or refused entry are right-wing journalists. What is it? Lawrence Southern and Brittany Pettibone. You know, like... That's the only ones I can think of that were turfed out of this country, and some Austrian geezer with them. That's the only ones I can think of. And they're pretty, like, you know, they're not fans of Islam or mass immigration as far as I'm aware. So I don't understand that reference. Meanwhile, party propaganda demonized the media as in cahoots with or ideologically indifferent to the machinations of the powerful cabal of Jews, degenerates and leftists, cannibalizing the country from within. Trump's insult, the lying media, a direct translation of the Nazis' favoured slur, Lügenpresse. My goodness. You are so desperate. You do know that the majority of people, you keep saying the same things over and over again. This shit doesn't stick. It doesn't stick. Especially when it comes to Trump. It's just, alright, you're just going too far. It's gone too far. Yes, he's uncouth. Yes, he said, I mean, yeah, alright, there's some stuff. You're like, whoa. I'll tell you what, since he's been in power, we haven't got into any bullshit wars. The world hasn't become a more dangerous place, unlike with his predecessors. Now think about that for a second. Think about that. Honestly, think about it. People talk about him being the worst president. Nazi references. Suppressing press freedom is a survival tactic for a political project which thrives on misinformation, violence and fear. So no, we should not be surprised that the far right feel bold enough to pounce on a left-wing journalist in central London in front of many witnesses. We should be determined to make their paranoia reality, to protect the marginalised people they want to demonise, to push for a different future, and to extinguish the cancer of the far right once and for all. Well, I agree with that. We should extinguish the far right. We should also extinguish the far left, of which you are definitely championing. If that is to be the case, we are to extinguish the far right, we must extinguish the far left too. And we can all be left with a nice, moderate balance. You cannot extinguish one without extinguishing the other. Both perpetuate nonsense, propaganda, they are divisive, and they lead to death, like unnecessary deaths. Now, who is responsible for more deaths? The far left or the far right? Some would say the far left. If you look at the broader scale, if you look at the spectrum of the last 100 years or so. So you are championing a cancer. You know, there's not just one cancer out there. If you talk about the far right being the only cancer, the far left is a cancer too. If you want to frame it like that. These are both cancers. They should be extinguished. Okay. Well, you're on one of the sides that should be extinguished too. And what does extinguished mean? Haven't we heard people using the terms extinguished? And it not coming off too well? Think of the terminology you're using. Think of what you're saying. There's like this whole tirade based on what? Hearsay. What someone said with no evidence to back it up. And you're just going to keep rolling with it. Bringing up Joe Cox, making convoluted Nazi references. Like, please. There's adults here, okay? Some of us are adults, alright? We got bills and shit. Reading your nonsense. Go on, go play in the sandpit with all your friends, you idiot.